1, 2, 3, 4. Pedagogy a go-go. Pedagogy go-go-go. Hello and welcome to Pedagogy a Go-Go, a podcast about how we engage with learning and why. This is Season 5, Episode 2, Your Worth is Not Your Grade, and we are your hosts, Kelly Allen and Gina Turner. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Gina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Hardly working. I was trying to think of that saying when I first came into the CTLT today. Are you working hard or hardly working? And I feel like I'm hardly working.
Yeah, I'm working hard to hardly work. Yeah. It's a strange day out there today, weather-wise. So it's just like super sunny and gorgeous, and then all of a sudden it's just gray clouds and these like little tiny like snow pelts.
Ooh.
Smattering around on the ground. And, so I work outside on, the East 40 in this big kind of like nature space. And what I love about it is anytime that there's something just fun and different and beautiful, like about the outdoors, one of us goes to find the rest to point it out. So today it was our garden manager, Alex. He just came, knocked on the door. He's like, you got to see what's going on outside.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, it was freaking nuts. So,
But
we're here indoors, and we're getting ready to engage in a conversation with Deanna.
Yes, very excited to talk to Deanna. Deanna is an associate professor of mathematics here at our college, and she started out in our learning center as a tutor. So she is passionate about math, apparently.
Yes, she is. She is. And she's a developmental educator, which is just near and dear to me. That's some of I think the most creative pedagogies are coming out of or coming from people who are engaged in dev ed. So I'm really excited to hear what she has to say.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you think about it, we all need a little bit of dev ed in our lives, right? Because we all have those areas that we probably feel very unconfident in education. So, so to hear from an expert in how to make learning accessible, it's going to be really valuable, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Can't wait.
If you had just one word to describe yourself as a teacher, what would it be?
I set it for noon today because I was like, I cannot forget this. I didn't, but I'm glad that I did. So anyways, so here we are. This is episode 2 of season 5, I think.
Yes.
And Deanna, welcome.
Thank you.
It is so marvelous having you here today at Pedagogy a Go-Go. And
yes, very happy to have you.
Thanks. I'm very happy to be here.
We're all happy.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Jeff, that's a wrap. Cool. Okay, so yes, it's just an absolute pleasure to be sitting in this oddly painted room with you, and so that we could talk about like what you do as an educator and how you approach learning. So if you wouldn't mind, could you start out just introducing yourself however you'd like?
All right. I'm Deanna Hammarsten, and I am an associate professor of mathematics is my official title at Northampton Community College.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. And can you just walk us through the classes you normally teach?
So I typically teach a couple sections of our developmental mathematics courses. We currently have 3 different levels, so I have my hands in all of those. I also teach our math for early childhood education majors, so their math requirements. And business statistics class currently is what I've been teaching the last couple semesters.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you really get a range of types of students, I would imagine. Can you walk us through the differences in the different levels? Just, kind kind of high level of the developmental classes?
Yeah, so our developmental class starts with pre-algebra, which is exactly what it sounds like. It covers how do you work with numbers, how do you add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and gives you the really fundamental skills to be able to do higher level math. And then the elementary algebra is our next level, which is like an Algebra 1 class, so stuff you might see 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
And then the intermediate algebra course is like an Algebra 2 class, so it gets that high level really ramping up, more for students who are going towards a STEM track. So most of our students hop off after the elementary algebra. That's going to prepare you for your general college level math classes. Yeah.
So who are your students that are going to start out in the first level of developmental?
It ranges so much. So I have some students who start out in the first level of developmental who've just finished high school.
Wow.
Which is really tough for them. They don't want to go back and do what they just did for the last 12 years of their schooling and start all over again. It's really frustrating.
Sure.
So I have those students. I have students who are coming back after a long time away from school, who are adult learners, who know they need that refresh to get ready for their college level work. So I have everybody from the newest to higher ed to students who are coming back after a long time.
Okay.
Now, I think maybe aside from like when we had Rebecca on the show, man, that was like one of our first kind of remote shows that we did. I think other than Rebecca, you're our only like dev ed educator that we've had on Pedagogy A Go-Go. Can you just kind of, like you've already started doing it, can you kind of unpack a little more, like what is developmental education? And I guess for my sake, as a former dev ed person, like what is the state of dev ed in 2025?
And I'll just say quickly, I think Dennis Ebersol also taught dev ed as well. Am I wrong about that?
He did our intermediate algebra class,
okay.
and a little bit of the elementary before I started here as well. Yeah, so he was very familiar, and he's familiar with a lot of stuff from his work with AMATIC, which is the American Mathematical Association of two-year colleges, so he's got his hands in a lot of the current affairs of mathematics.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest thing about developmental math is it's not, so much of it is not mathematics. So even though I'm teaching developmental math, and I have to get my students ready for their college level math classes, there's a lot about math that is, my students come with real traumatic feelings and traumatic experiences, and they feel just bad a lot of the time. They don't feel capable. They feel as though the fact that they're in developmental math again makes it feel impossible. Like, okay, I already didn't succeed in this apparently, and what's going to make this different? It starts from a young age when you talk to your students, middle school, even before they begin to kind of fall off the track and just lose confidence. So the state of developmental education is rough, especially students who went through their formative schooling years during COVID at this point. There's a big gap in some of their just soft skills as students, and then also their academic skills, and they don't want to confront those challenges because it's hard for them.
Yeah, the confidence, not having any confidence
Correct.
In themselves.
Yeah, they're very unsure. They are very much, the easiest thing to do is kind of not engage with it, right? Like, why am I going to keep coming back here? Why am I going to keep some of our students are like, I don't even want to be in the classroom. I'd rather try and take this class online because at least then I'm more comfortable in my own space at home. Maybe I can like engage when I need to engage in it. But that human aspect of developmental education is so important. They need a support, they need a coach, they need a mentor, they need to know they're capable, and that there's no intrinsic motivation there. So it's like a lot of external kind of support to get them on the road ahead.
Yeah, like and thank you for sharing that. And like I'm trying to I don't know, balance these feelings of both kind of like just hope, that we have these, great educators that are doing this healing work essentially, but then also the feeling of rage that I feel that that students have to carry these feelings of trauma, like from one year to the next through their educational journey. And yeah, and I'm thinking of my daughter right now, specifically, like she's just, smart as a whip. And I don't, what is that saying? Like, are whips smart?
I think it's the smarting of it.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm sorry.
She's not smart like that. She's just super smart. But anywho, yeah. So she's had some. Man, I'm about to like go in another direction, but I'm not. I'm staying focused. Here we go. But like she's had like some like pretty like traumatic experiences through her like parts of her elementary and now middle school experience education, and each time it was in math. And I'm not going to overgeneralize and stuff like that, but like the teachers were very like kind of like hyper masculine male teachers, but like they weaponized math as a way to shame students, and it sucked. It really did. But yeah, like I totally am, picking up what you're putting down about like, it's about kind of addressing all this other stuff that exists outside of the actual math. Like for me as a writing instructor, so, I was hired in 2008 to teach developmental writing. So much of what I had to do was just talk about like the other stuff. And then it's like, okay, let's work on some sentences now. But anyways, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And I do think it's tied together. What we think of when we think of math. So many people aren't actually thinking about what math is and what math could be, right? You think about math and you're like, okay, well, I have to solve for X, or I have to figure out what's 2 plus 3. And I think focusing on math as a path to a solution opens up a lot of ability for it to be weaponized, because there's a right and there's a wrong. And where I want to do a lot of my work in my classroom is think about math as a way of thinking and a way of approaching problems. And yeah, there might be one right answer, but there's a bunch of paths to get there. Like, can you access those things? Can we be flexible in our thinking? Can we talk about the importance of making mistakes and how they're necessary and good? And thank you for pointing out my mistake. You just helped me get smarter. I try and say that in my class. I make mistakes sometimes. It happens. So because we think of mathematics as black and white, it can be weaponized in that way. But it's really... that's not what it is.
Right.
And that's what I feel like some of my work is it is mathematical, but it's how can you think about this as something it's a process, a way of thought, a way of approaching. Am I asking the right questions?
Yeah. And it's a tool. I do a little bit of statistics in my research methods classes for psychology. And I always tell my students, which is what my statistics teacher told me in undergrad, which is these are just exactly what you just said, Deanna. These are just ways of asking questions about the world and finding out information about the world. And there are many, many ways that you can ask those questions. So it's just another tool. And it just makes me also want to clarify, just for myself and my ignorance about developmental math, we're not talking about students who might have dyscalculia, right?
Not necessarily, no. Yeah. These are just students who went through the traditional school system and they told they were ready to go to college and they weren't. And it's a real disservice to them. It's infuriating, truly. And I'm not blaming, just to be clear, the teachers at all. They are doing their best with the parameters they're given. This is a systemic issue. Sure. And I really do see in the next 10 years, there's got to be a reckoning in like the math curriculum world and how we teach math and what we teach, and is it relevant? Is the algebra curriculum that we're based on relevant still? That's what developmental math is focused on.
Oh, that's a fascinating question. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because we always do want to ask sort of what you see as the gaps in what we're doing as educators, and what where you're seeing the systems going wrong. So can you, and I'm just personally fascinated by this idea that algebra might be the wrong thing to be teaching.
Yeah, and to be clear, there are people who need algebra, obviously.
Right.
We use algebra a lot. It shows up a lot. But as we go to a world that's more data-driven and data analytics, like basic information literacy has becoming more important. So do we need a curriculum that's more based on statistics? That's more based on visual reasoning. That's more based on, I don't know, just how do we think about things? Critical thinking even. One of the reasons developmental math is so hard for students is they don't feel it's relevant to their lives. They don't feel it's relevant to their majors. Why do I need to learn this? So how do we build this motivation for algebra? It can be tricky. You think of all these math problems you maybe did in high school or elementary school. They all feel so contrived, right? Like
I have 5 mangoes.
Correct. And yeah. I was helping a 7th grade student with a homework problem yesterday that was like, little Jimmy was measuring worms, and this worm was 8 inches long, and the other worm is 2.5 inches shorter. How long's the other worm? And I'm like, who's out there measuring worms?
Jimmy, apparently.
Jimmy has a passion.
So it's like, how are we supposed to get excited about that?
Yeah.
And it's a bigger I don't have a solution to the problem. I'm trying to do little things where I can, even in my own classes, because at the end of the day, we're all constricted by the math they had before and the math they need after. And if they're stuck in this like system of math classes, it's still my responsibility to get them ready for that. But I have to kind of couch it and try and motivate it as much as I can, and try and support them to feel the intrinsic value as much as I can. But.
Yeah. Well, I hear your frustration and your empathy for these students. And so I think I want to bring it back to our next question, which is, if you had to use a word to describe yourself as a teacher in the classroom, what word or words would you use?
I was thinking about this a lot, but I think the word I would use is a cultivator. I really do, I view my job with my students. If we think about them as plants, I'll think about them as plants, right? Some of my students are as hardy as the sidewalk crack dandelion, right? And they're going to grow and flourish there no matter what I do. And some of my students have all this potential. Every plant has potential in it to grow into the best thing it's going to be. And maybe their soil wasn't fertilized well, or maybe it's been really cloudy for them, or maybe someone stepped on them early. I can still help them grow, right?
Yeah.
And reach as much potential as they can. And so that cultivation is in their knowledge and in their confidence and in their just anything that makes them the full student they can be. That's really what I want to think about myself as, and I try to be. I'm certainly never going to be the perfect version of that, but you can always get a little better, hopefully.
Well, no one is. Obviously none of us are the perfect version of what we want to be, but I'm obsessed with this metaphor, especially because, just briefly, I use this book now in my health psychology class to talk about this metaphor of health, and how they also use a plant metaphor, a tree metaphor. And one of the examples is, you said they might get stepped on. They didn't get enough sun. They didn't get enough water. Also, sometimes they're just yanked up by their roots and planted in the next place without any consideration of what the roots were before and where they've been planted newly. And that one always really sticks out to me, and sticks out to my students too, because that's sort of that system of just keep moving them through. Just keep moving them through.
Damn. So, I don't know, that's intense. So where did that come from? So where did you learn how to be that kind of educator? What inspires you, or had inspired you?
I'll be honest, at first, I just really loved math. And I did not want to be an educator. I was actively not trying to be an educator. And then in college, I was tapped to tutor. And it just sharing something I love, and that's such like a wonderful way of thinking about things, and it can open so many possibilities. Sharing that with the students I was tutoring was great. And my own math professor in college was very student-centered and like gave us what we need and gave us support. And that doesn't mean there was no rigor. And that's, I also want to mention, like, even though it's developmental mathematics, even though I am in touch with the whole student experience, there has to be rigor, or else if you don't feel like you've earned it, you're never going to actually build the confidence, right? So, and it was hard and it was really challenging, but he was always there kind of supporting us. So it started in college, and then as I got to know the students here, when I first moved here, I started working at the Learning Center.
Okay.
And I spent 2 years there, and it was so wonderful. And I really felt the impact that even just 30 minutes with a person can have. And so much of it, again, I'm helping you with math, but I'm also helping you believe you can do it, which is the thing that helps the most in the long run, I think. So.
And our learning center, just to to explain, is our tutoring center. It provides a lot of writing support, a lot of discipline-specific support for students there as well. So.
Yeah.
For all you non-NCC people.
Yes.
And like there's like you're talking about rigor, and and I don't know like what the subconscious thing was where like you felt that you needed to reinforce that rigor happens in your classroom, but like I totally recognize it. And like the question that I have, and not for you specifically, but just one that I'll throw out into the ether, is like, why is it that a learning environment that focuses on care kind of has this kind of like side implication that it's not as rigorous? Like that just like blows my mind, that we do what we do in an environment that thinks of teaching and learning that way. Like if there's no pain, there's no gain, which is just words that Jeff would bleep out. But anyways, so yeah, that's cool.
So do you feel like you tailor the way that you work with the different, the dandelions versus the poor trod upon crocus?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as educators, we all kind of learn where we can push and where we need to hold back a little bit. And so I do, I try and push them towards, all right, think of it this way, think of it that way. I'm going to celebrate every win with all my students. I'm going to celebrate every mistake with all my students, to a point, right? There comes a point where a learning mistake is something that they eventually you need to get there. So I kind of try my best to give them what they need. If they ask for something that's above and beyond in terms of like an explanation, have you ever tried to explain why a negative number times a negative number is a positive number to someone who really wants to know why? I'm going to try my best to give that to that student. And I'm not going to make everyone try and feel interested by that, because that's not fascinating to everybody, and it doesn't need to be. But I'm always just going to try and meet them where they are. Like our developmental math program is very individualized. They all have to learn the same stuff by the end. How they get there is going to be a little different for each student.
Like I'd like to just digress a small bit, if I may, Gina. So like I know that you're a parent. How many kids do you have?
4.
4, that's right. So like you were talking earlier about kind of like the traumas that students experience on their educational journey before they get to you. So as a mom, like what are you doing for your kids to kind of prevent that same thing from happening?
I'm really trying hard to first kind of keep them flexible. So I'm not expecting perfection. I'm expecting progress, right? I'm expecting kind of effort over results, and then just trying to help them see, I love school. Obviously, I loved school. That's why I'm here. I really enjoyed it for the most part. But it's not everything. So you're going to find things you really like to do. You're going to find things that you don't really like. You have to kind of engage no matter what, but your worth is not in your worth is not your grade, right? That's something I say to my students. I'm like, whenever I grade their exam and give it back, I say, your grade is not a moral judgment on you. Because it feels like it, right? It feels like I'm worthless. I can't pass. Like, your grade is literally just a measure of, are you ready for your next math class in this course, in developmental? So trying really hard to separate the two early is so important to me because they're not the same. You are not your grade. You're so much more.
That's so interesting. I was having a conversation about something slightly different. Kelly's over there cavelling. He's so moved by what you just said.
Developmental educators are the best. Well, throw that out.
So we were talking about how people take criticism, and it's exactly what you just said. Is that grade on a paper can feel like it's a stab in your very soul. And I was thinking about how we tell kids, you can tell someone a critique if they can change it in 5 minutes. Otherwise, don't say something. So if, like, you have a cornflake on your face, you can tell someone. But if you hate their shirt, don't tell them that.
I don't need to know. Yeah.
And I think, and I just think of that a lot because I think when I'm giving my student feedback on something, for me, it feels like there's a cornflake on your face.
Yes.
For them, it feels like your whole outfit is terrible and you're a horrible human being. And I think, and I think maybe that's what, Kelly was pointing out, that his daughter has had these traumatizing experiences with people who are trying to shame their students. But you've said you had good math teachers, and probably that is what has developed you into such a good math teacher. Can you think of things that, maybe some examples that you had as a student that you continue to try and do in your classes?
Yeah. So many that I'm having trouble remembering any of them. So mostly a classroom culture, like, is so important, right? It has to be kind of a safe place to make mistakes, and a place where mistakes are encouraged. One of my teachers, Mr. Holland, he was a very gruff person, and he would also do things like, if you said something silly that he knows you should know, he would throw a dry erase marker. I would never do that at you. I tell my students, I had a teacher who did this. I won't do it to you, but I had a teacher who did this. But he also built a classroom culture where that was a thing he could do without it being an issue ever, right? He knew us all so well as individuals, and so I try and do that. I try and give my students space to work on it themselves. So much learning is not going to happen when I'm up there talking. One of my teachers always used, like, the coach metaphor, which, if you're not going to go to basketball practice and your coach is going to do the drills all the time, right? You're not going to learn how to play basketball better. And I always use that. And the experiences I mostly use for my students aren't necessarily experiences of me being a student thinking about a teacher. It's me being a student and being a student. Like, the first time I cried in a math class, I was in 3rd grade for a word problem. And I tell them that. And I'm like, you know what? I am a math professor. I know my stuff, and I'm not going to pretend I don't. I cried about a word problem when I was 8 years old. And, so I understand you, and I understand the frustrations, and I felt them too. So those are the lessons I try to share the most. It's like, that's what they need, I think, the most. And I wonder, I don't have as many of the experiences to share. I feel like education wasn't set up in that way when I was a student. You know what I mean? It was all very much like, here are your 50 problems to do, and these are the ones that were right, and these are the ones that were wrong, and we're going to have our lecture now for 50 minutes, 3 times a week. And
Yeah. I love the example of the professor who threw the dry erase board, erasers. I had a biology teacher who we were dissecting frogs. This was in high school, and if a similar thing where it was like, you're being silly, he would throw a frog at the student. These horrible pickled frogs. But again, he had created this environment where, that was, he didn't do it very often, but because that would be a waste of frogs.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many frogs are in that class?
ASPCA would be called. But yeah, to create the environment based on who you are, because I love how you describe him. Also, he was a gruff person, but still there was something about the way he could conduct a class that you felt safe.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, any student will know in a heartbeat if you're not being who you are. You have to be authentic. You have to work your class to you. And it's so important to give every educator the freedom to do that as much as possible, because you're benefiting everyone when you do that. Yeah.
Man. So you strike me as a very kind of just student forward educator. And I'm sure that we all can agree that the students that we meet on day one are not the students that we get to know by week 15. So in what ways do you kind of adapt your teaching style to kind of grow with your students throughout the semester?
Let's see. You fall into your flow. So I spend the first couple weeks really creating the environment and the routine, right? Everyone likes to know what to expect. It's good for everybody. And then we kind of make the routine so that we can break it when we need to and create that environment. There might come a point in week 10 where we're getting there right now. Everyone's kind of done, and we need to check in, and I might need to shake some stuff up. We're going to see. So I just try and keep a plan, and I am a planner, but keep it flexible. It cannot be too rigid. Yeah. So I really just try and respond to what they need. I try and talk to them. Is this working? Is this not? We can change things.
It comes back to that creating that safety, so that if everyone already knew what to expect, then they're a little bit more able to make the changes later on.
And because they've been doing the same thing, they can see if it's working or not anymore, right? They have something to compare it to. So.
Yeah, because the semester is a long period of time, and it's been a long. Oh my gosh, yeah. So and it's been a while since I've taught a full semester course. So I mostly exist in the accelerated semester world, which it's 7 weeks, and it's we're done before we even realize what the hell happened to us. But I do remember that you're talking about week 10. It's when we're dealing with a population of students, and I don't know if this is just a community college thing or if our colleagues are experiencing this at the four-year colleges and universities, but there's our students are so susceptible to kind of disruptions in their lives that they could start out just being absolutely stellar, and then something traumatic can happen, and then it's that could totally run the risk of going from a great semester to oh my gosh, am I going to pass this kind of semester? Is that still happening with our students?
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you do when a student comes up and is because I remember it with my experiences that, things are going, well for students, and then all of a sudden it's they lose their job, or they've been laid off, and then all of a sudden they find that they're going to be unhoused. How do you deal with that?
The first thing is, I really want to, there have been times where I've wanted to cry right along with my student, right? They come to you and you're okay, but I try and be a sense of calm and consistency. So if they need like a major resource, I mean, where can you find it? We are going to get through this. So there is a path forward. There's always some kind of path forward. What are your goals, right? Is some people have an experience so disruptive that they need to get off the train, and sometimes they need permission to do that. Because it's not healthy for them to try and like cling on to the 4 classes they're trying to take and finish all of them. That might not be what's best for them.
Right.
So helping them see like, what are your priorities? Where do we go from here? What are you looking to accomplish? And how can we make a plan? And just being, just help them find the calm and the path forward. It really is the main goal. Because they do. I mean, I had a student just show up into my classroom like crying. Right? It's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And because we have a routine established, I know my other students are going to be just fine while I take a little bit of time chatting to my student who needs me.
And, that comes back to what you were saying about your own kids, and education is important, and you loved it, and they can find something they love, but it's not the be-all, end-all. And I think for our students, they can catastrophize so that if something, and it can be really heartbreaking. I'm thinking about last spring, I had a student who was doing fantastic, and then all of a sudden a big thing in her life blew up, and she ended up having to withdraw from the class. But it was the best thing in this moment for her to withdraw from this class and attend to the other priorities in her life. And I think we as instructors have to remember, because I think for us the number one priority is, but I really want you to get through this class. And so for you to be able to also recognize, no, you know what? You don't need to get through this class right now. And we do have the option sometimes of giving them an incomplete, for example.
Of course, yeah.
And also pointing them to the resources that can help them to handle all of the other things that are going on in their life right now.
Yeah, but there's something about what you both are sharing that has reminded me of kind of also like just being mindful of the resiliency that our students contain. Like I'll never forget. I certainly forget all the fine details, but I will never forget that I had this one student. She came up to me after the first class. And she was like, I just want to let you know that I'm going to have to miss these 2 weeks in the semester. And I was just like, what? I mean, that's sort of a lot going on in that. And then I was like, so, sure. What's going on? Do you mind if I ask? And she was like, I'm going to have a baby. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But it's just like she just had her kind of her life goal set, and she's like, and I'm going to be welcoming this new life into the world, and if that means that I got to miss 2 weeks of school, I'm going to miss 2 weeks of school. And I was just like, you go. And she was so hardcore. She was a lot of fun. But yeah, you're going to have a baby. Like, are you sure 2 weeks is enough?
We have a colleague who works with our students to provide emergency basic needs, and we have a lot of really excellent resources at our school. Go to our website and check it out. We really try to provide for the supports around our students, as Deanna is also so beautifully describing. But she talks about a student who came in for her final exam in labor, and basically started to, labor kicked in the middle of the exam, and she didn't want to leave. And so they called, just the security to help escort her because she needed to go to the hospital. And all she could say was, but I just really don't want to fail this test. And I guess I thought of that too, because resilience has sort of become a little bit of a trigger word for me, because I admire the strength and the fortitude of our students and the stick-to-itiveness that they have, but I don't want them to have to bounce back from all these things in their life. And I want and I'm not I'm not criticizing you at all, Kelly. You have a cornflake on your face.
Oh, I knew you were going to do that. Oh, Gina, you're the best. Holy crow. Okay. Go on.
No,
Wax poetic. This is awesome.
But I wish life were easier for these students, and I wish they didn't have to jam all this stuff all into, you know, and they talk about, I need to get this done for this, and I'm like, you're 20 something years old, which again, but I also understand that sense of urgency. So I don't know. I feel like I went off on a tangent.
Okay. Well, no, but I know that many of our listeners are going to be asking the same question that's going through my mind. Did they pass the test?
They were able to take it at another time. Yes, they were able to come back. I believe they got an incomplete in the class, and then were able to come back and complete it. Yeah, I'll check that, and if we need to update you, I will provide the update. But I'm 99% sure that's what happened.
And Mama and Baby are fine.
And Mama and Baby were fine.
That's amazing.
Welcome to Pedagogy Go, where we just talk about. Oh man, I love it. Where the hell are we on this, Gina?
Well, I'm thinking. So we always ask if there's an anecdote or an assignment or anything that you would like to share with us, and you shared this really lovely story. Would you like to?
Yeah, sure. The first day of class, I know, you ask anyone pretty much in America, like, whenever I tell them I'm a math professor, the first thing everyone says, I hate math. I'm terrible at math. And I know my students are walking into class with that attitude. And so the first day of class, I always start by giving them permission to not like math. And I always tell them, you don't have to like math. I like math enough for every single person in this room together. So my love for math is stronger than all the dislike for math you have. So you can keep it for now. I just want you to be more confident. And I never know how much that sticks with my students. I try and remind them it's okay. You don't have to like something to be good at it. They really do believe if they don't like it, they can't be good at it. And we really have to fight against the idea of math people versus non-math people. And I have a whole tangent I could go on that, truly, about the importance to good citizenship, to being not considering yourself not a math person in this day and age is not conducive to having power. There's a whole great documentary that I'll shout out called Counted Out, if you want to watch it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want you to go on.
But this student emailed me a year after having her. She's in her program. She's successful. She's doing well in math. She's like, I actually feel confident now. I actually like math now. And my daughter was asking me for math help. And before I wasn't really sure I could help her. But my daughter was needing help and I was helping her and I was enjoying it. My daughter said, I don't like math. And then she told me, she's like, I said what you said. And I told her, I like math enough for both of us because it's true now. And that's such a beautiful thing. Breaking the cycle of considering yourself a math person or not. That just means so much more than we think it does. It means a lot. I'll go off on that tangent now.
Please, yes.
The thesis of this
we
movie.
Love tangents.
The thesis of the movie is something that I have trouble kind of phrasing. It's something I truly believe, right? In this world that's increasingly built on data analysis, that's showing you ads based off what you click on, right? Where whether your resume gets seen or not is based off of an algorithm, right? Whether people are up for parole or not is based off an algorithm, where so much of our world is modeled. There's an underlying layer of mathematics to everything that is having an influence on us in our lives. So to consider yourself not a math person is to remove yourself from the whole conversation of where your life is going, is to remove yourself from the ability to engage with the things that are affecting all of us daily, right? You're basically saying, and not in such a strong way, but you're kind of giving the world permission to just happen to you and all these things to just occur without your engagement. So we need to start considering ourselves math people more. And that doesn't mean, can I solve for X? Do I know algebra? That comes down to, what are the questions I'm asking? Can I look at this graph and understand what it's telling me? Can I ask, where did this come from? How did this decision get made? So, if someone's throwing out a percentage at me, percent of what? What is, right? If someone says do this and your chances are doubled, what were my chances before they were doubled?
Right.
0.1%, right? It's
Right.
like you need to be numeracy is important. Being a conformed consumer of like mathematical information is important. So to call yourself not a math person, you're like fully removing yourself from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those medical stories you see in the news is, eating X increases your chance of cancer by 70%. 70% of what?
Yeah.
And you also make me think of the quote I always use with my students, my research method students, who also always tell me, oh, I'm terrified of this. And they're more likely to say they're terrified of it as opposed to hating it because they don't know what to expect. And then I just tell them this is a way of asking questions. But I quote Mark Twain, who said there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics, because it's really illustrating the fact that people do that on purpose. They tell you 75% more chance of something to scare you as opposed to giving you the base numbers. So, oh my gosh, I need to watch this documentary.
Yeah, but it's so true. So if you know to ask those questions, right, I can't be lied to.
Yeah.
Well, I can be, but I won't believe them.
Man. And there's just something about what you're saying. I don't know what, like, if you listen to podcasts other than this one, but there's one that I listen to frequently. It's All My Relations. And not too long ago, they had a show on data sovereignty that kind of echoes some of the things that you're talking about. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go off onto my tangent. So only one tangent per episode. And,
I think we already broke that rule.
Within the world of higher ed and your position as a math instructor, if there's one thing that you could change about your profession or higher ed in general, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a
You only
big
get one.
question. I know. I can only pick one. I mean, am I restricted to higher ed? Because I'm ready to change the math curriculum from top to bottom. And just, again, obviously we feel like our subjects are the most important thing in the world. And obviously I love mathematics in all of its forms. But how can we make it more relevant? How can we make it relevant in like a measurable way too, right? That's one of I think the real issues in the K through 12 setting is like everything needs to be measured and quantified. It's really hard to quantify critical thinking. So how can we introduce more of these open-ended aspects of mathematics where the real mathematical thinking is happening in a way that makes people feel like the students are actually learning? Because they are. But how can we prove it to everybody?
Yeah.
So.
That is the $50,000 question.
Yeah, right.
Well, I was just gonna say, when you like get heavy duty into that work, if you need the workhorse to help you move things forward, count me in, because that sounds not only just fascinating but definitely worthwhile. So thank you. So Gina, you want to take us home?
Sure. So our last question is: tell us a non-guilty pleasure that your fellow faculty don't know about you.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure, right?
Thank
It's all
you.
just pleasure.
Thank you.
But we've been forced to feel bad about it for some reason. One of my this is not really a guilty pleasure, but it's a task I'm after. So whenever someone from the most recent Star Wars trilogy has a show on or off Broadway, I try and go to it, and I stage door it after to get their autographs.
Fantastic.
And possibly picture if I can. So my collection's up to 2.
That's officially a collection.
And I'm really looking forward to making it 3 one day. We got Oscar Isaac.
Oh my goodness.
And Adam Driver.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? I'm like, oh. So, I mean, I guess if it ends there, it's fine. I'm still a winner, but.
Okay, you kind of, I'm not going to lie, you kind of lost me with the Star Wars, but you got me back with those 2 actors.
Right?
Oh, mercy. And Adam Driver, he's really, really tall, so he counts as like 1.5.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
fantastic.
That is awesome. Well, I think that kind of conclude things for us here today,
It
right?
does.
Yeah.
This was terrific,
Thank
and
you
you've
so
got
much for having me.
so excited. I want to see this documentary and just thinking more about this whole idea of just how we make all of our teaching relevant to our students.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've had like just a ton of really like amazing guests on this show, but I can't remember the time that I've like almost like teared up, not in like a bad like crying way, but just like emotional way, as much as I did during this episode. So like Deanna, just thank you so much for being here and just kind of sharing what you do with us and the rest of the little podcast world.
And doing what you do.
Yes, and doing what you do.
Well, thank you both.
All right.
For all of it.
Pedagogy a go go. Pedagogy go go go. I think we're similar. It's like, wow, that was great.
No, yeah, that conversation was incredible, and like I don't know how much was caught on the recording or not, but like there were certainly parts of our exchange with Deanna that just like it was emotional, and not in a good way, not in a bad way, not in a way. It was just like it felt good knowing that we've got educators out there who see students and work with students for who they are and where they are.
And it's just really good to be reminded that the work that we're doing at any institution of higher learning, really, but our mission statement really is to meet our students where they are and to provide them every support that they need in order to succeed. That is a paraphrase of our mission statement. I don't have our mission statement memorized, but I think it's important, in the world in which we live currently, to remember that there are just good people like Deanna doing good work to help people move on and live good lives. And fundamentally, that's really, I feel like, what it's all about. And I'm just so excited about her passion about critically thinking and using numbers in a way to understand our lives and make our lives better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love the part where she was talking about being a cultivator, and just like her students are plants, and as a person who spends a lot of time with plants, I'm like, okay, where are you going with this? And the way that it's like, some are like, just have the right kind of like conditions, and like some of them are like the stuff in the cracks in the sidewalk, they're really like hardy, and then like others who, maybe like the soil quality, it wasn't like nurtured or like whatever the magic words that she was saying. I was just like, oh my goodness, like.
And the way she said, and also it can get stepped on, so even that hardy dandelion,
yes,
somebody can carelessly step on it. So and furthermore, that poor little scraggly plant, if it gets food and water later, can flourish. So we're all just prey to whatever experiences that hit us at these different periods in our lives, and so
yeah. And then the part she said about like making math more relevant, like the part that like she was like getting ready to like put algebra up as like one of the things that get asked. It's like, whoa, where are you going with this? Because one of the things that I say to my kids all the time is like, you use algebra all the time, every day you're using algebra. She's like, oh, well, let's axe it. But
well, she did very much say, no, algebra is important, but she was saying it's not the only important thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the exchange that the two of you had about like statistics. And, like just wow. But like going back to the whole like relevancy part of this, it's got me thinking about, like my own field. And I feel like that's something that we all should be doing. So, it has been a while since I was really engaged with our English faculty here. But I remember even then, it's like, why are we taking these survey courses in American Literature 1 and American Literature 2. It's so like disconnected from like our day-to-day lives. Like, I'm not saying that like the material itself, but like kind of packaging it and engaging with our students with it in that way just does it. It just seems very tone deaf to where our students are and who our students are.
Oh, that's so true, Kelly, because if we package it as, well, this is just stuff you should know, like, who cares, right? But if we can approach it as, here's some stuff that I want to teach you that's going to help you to understand stuff in the future, right? And so back to this question of relevancy. And you can package information in a million ways, but packaging it as just like, no, you're just supposed to know this, right? Is not what we should be about.
Yeah, and it's like, but then I'm also thinking about like our position at a community college where transferability is like the of the utmost importance when it comes to developing our classes. We don't really have the flexibility to just like change the names of things, but we can change our approach to it as educators. So like there is some kind of autonomy within our profession, or at least I hope so.
I think that's true. And I think Deanna was getting at that when she was using the word rigor, right? None of this is to say that we still don't want our students to know this stuff. But it's that recognizing that getting them to know this is going to be easier if we can get them to care about it and to apply it to real world stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, just, again, just another just, great opportunity to talk with one of our colleagues. And it was just, overwhelming in just all the right ways.
I know.
So
I never know where these conversations are going to go, and it's so fun. All right.
Well, Gina, again, it was just great hanging out with you.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Jeff, it was great hanging out with you.
Always a pleasure, sir.
And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Pedagogy A Go-Go, recorded in the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology at Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Our producer in all things technology is Jeff Armstrong. If you've got any questions, please send them to pedagogyagogo@gmail.com, and be sure to follow us on social media at pedagogyagogo, and click into our bio for copies of podcast transcripts, guest assignments, and other useful tidbits. Until next time, this is Gina and Kelly saying we hope your day is filled with wonderful learning experiences.